We all know Castlereagh today as a vibrant modern borough, but to Roy Greer there was a mystery. Why Castlereagh? Was there a castle? Roy and Keith Haynes solved the mystery for us. First up is Roy.
Yeah, I've lived in Castlereagh for most of my adult life. Went to Grosvenor Grammar School and had an interest in local history, and also really to uncover how on earth Castlereagh managed to acquire that name, because there's no site of any castle in the borough. So it was that interest that drove me to delve a little bit more deeply into the records to try and find out how on earth Castlereagh got that name.
The name Castlereagh can't really predate the mid 15th century. Castlereagh was the name given to the castle that was built on the hill. Predominantly the area would have been known as Dufferin up to the 15th century, and then the O'Neills built a castle, the so-called Castlereagh. I think virtually everybody accepts that it actually meant the Grey Castle.
It has an Irish root. It's from, I'm not sure of the pronunciation, but it's castlereagh,
which strictly doesn't actually mean grey. In its term, you've got Grey Abbey, for instance, which was the sort of Monastir Leath, which was Grey Abbey. There was another name, which essentially is anglicised to Ray, which meant grey but more mottled. And I think in the end that sort of gives a clue to where the stone came from, the castle. It was probably Scrabo stone, which was sort of greyish but more mottled in colour, rather than the sort of red sandstone that was used elsewhere.
The castle site, I think, has been it's now agreed that the castle site is at the Orange Hall on the Church Road, just overlooking Castlereagh and looking down over the valley of Belfast. The castle itself is marked on the Downshire maps, which the Downshire family eventually became the owners of the land, having taken the land from Con O'Neill in various land deals. It's marked clearly on their maps, and it's also been excavated by the Queen's University. And also nearby there is a mound, again on the Knockbracken Road, or the Manse Road rather, that is thought to have been the mound where the O'Neills were inaugurated as chieftains. In fact, the O'Neill chair is in the Ulster Museum and is the only artefact of its kind left in all of Ireland. So it's a significant piece of archaeology. And so we have the castle where at the top overlooking Castlereagh. It was called the Eagle's Nest because of its lofty position, but we also have the mound where the important inauguration of the chieftain took place, which is only a matter of maybe 400 metres away.
Okay, that's grand.
The most interesting character who lived there was a man called Con O'Neill, and Con O'Neill was the last of the Gaelic chieftains. He was a bit of a character. He was the 14th in line from Yellow Hugh, and was a proud Gaelic lord, and he had an extensive territory, probably only second to Hugh O'Neill of Tyrone. So he was a man of massive influence. He resided at Castlereagh in the castle, and unfortunately it was as a result of his hospitality that he came to his undoing, and eventually lost all of what was Upper Clannaboy, and included the Ards Peninsula, much of the Ards Peninsula, and into parts of Down around Lisburn and Blaris and so on. So his undoing was a rather interesting story, but a very unfortunate story.
When Chichester took it, it almost became abandoned, I think. When the Hills took over, the Hill family sort of took over, they showed no real interest, and I think it really fell into dilapidation fairly quickly. And I think it was generally used as a quarry, particularly for the cottage, Leatham Cottage, and so on. And indeed, the early Presbyterian church that was built up there in 1720, they used some of the stone. Now, the building there, the church there now, is dates to 1835. It was a rebuild, but I think the 1720 church is reputed to have been built from some of the stone. So really, it fell into dilapidation. And I think that there is this story that in the early 19th century, a wall was ordered to be built around it to protect it, and the Irish stonemasons used the stone from the castle.
And the story there is that the Downshire estate, in trying to protect the castle, instructed the builder to build a wall around the castle, but the builder is said to have taken the very stones of the castle to build the wall, so only in Ireland. But
the only evidence for it late is that in 1895, J.W. Carey, the local artist who lived at Knock, he went up there and sketched the castle, and there is a sketch, and you've got the sort of a small wall and one or two bits of stone in the background and trees, and that's all that was left at the end of the 19th century. And I think after the O'Neills were sort of evicted, the new rulers simply, the new owners like the Hills and so on, Downshire, simply didn't find the place congenial. It wasn't what they wanted, and they built new houses and allowed this to go into ruin.